Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Bojack Horseman, which we'll be getting into today. My name is Andy Potter, and today I'm joined by my both hopefully not cripplingly depressed Alex Bonilla.
Hola.
And Sam Quattro.
It's too late for me not to be crippling depressed, I'm sorry.
For me, it's too early.
We're getting there. So, today before we get into everything, we're going to talk about Bojack Horseman today, but before that, you can find everything about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com or at iTunes, where we appreciate your star ratings, or search for Overly Animated on your favorite podcatcher. So, today, we're going to be talking about episode 2 of Bojack Horseman season 4, which is the old Sugarman place, so if you guys if you listeners have not finished Bojack Horseman yet, season 4, we are only going to be talking about episode 2. We have not seen past this, and we're not going to be talking about past this, so you're going to be fine listening to this and following along with us if you want. So, yeah, so this second episode is a lot more, has a lot more depth to it than episode 1. The episode 1 was really an intro, there's a lot of comedy. This is more what I think about when I think about Bojack Horseman. This kind of really depressing crap that happens to everybody that touches Bojack and the people in his family before him. And so, before we really get into everything that goes wrong here, I want to get a little barometer on how you guys felt about this. So, Alex, how did you feel about this episode? Did you like it in general? Did you was it a little shocking, or did you think it went a little too far? How did you feel about it?
I personally loved it. It's exactly the kind of episode that I connect to the most in Bojack Horseman. They just go into people's history, figuring out why people are the way they are. Beatrice in particular, she's a character that's always intrigued me just because of how much we've seen of her and her effect on Bojack's upbringing and his life. And she's always she was almost on my minor characters list, but I left her off for some unknown reason. But yeah, I really like just seeing how really, even though one person has an effect on your life, sometimes you have to think how they got to a certain place as well. We think about Bojack, obviously, since he's the main character, but you also have to think about how the other influences in his life, how they came to be. So it's just an interesting look, and especially a contrast with where he is in his life currently as well. Like the actual plot, like the present plot of him building the house, it's okay, but I think the flashbacks really steal the show here.
Yeah, the flashbacks were really, really tough. There were a couple especially that I just... They're especially one of the last ones, the one with the last two ones, the one at the barn with the song and the one with the lobotomy. Those two really hit me really hard in both times I watched this episode. They were very emotional and very, very depressing for Beatrice's character. I already really did like Beatrice, but I appreciated her character in the previous seasons. I think I had her at number 10 on my top minor characters list, and this is just horrible. This is horrible what happened to her in her childhood. But we're going to get into that. So Sam, how did you mirror Alex's opinions here? Did you really like this episode?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was a very beautiful episode, to be honest with you. Of course, the juxtaposition between Bojack and Beatrice and their experiences in this house, and just sort of like the inklings of, what tragedies befell the Horseman family. Well, it's Sugarman, but, same thing, really. Yeah, I especially was very impressed by the storyboarding, especially in that, the barn, party singing, Stealing the Weather Vane sequence, where it was just it was like a bleeding between flashback and current, between, Beatrice and her mother, as well as, Bojack and the, dragonfly guy. And it was just, so amazing. And I think definitely Beatrice and her, past 1940s story totally stole the show of, what I think walking into this episode we thought was going to be, Bojack being depressed and, leaving LA and, living in the middle of whatever.
Yeah, it was painful watching Beatrice's story here. And and just like you, I really did think I really was expecting something like Bojack alone, like Korra alone or Zuko alone. Like I expected just to be like Bojack alone being emotional. And it was that. He was alone and emotional, but it wasn't anything new. We'd seen Bojack like this before in that he was depressed and wished he was happy. He wishes he was happy and he keeps looking for how to do that. But instead of seeing his past, we see his mother's past and we see how his childhood was affected by his mother's childhood. And this was really depressing because this is a very realistic way that families get really broken, and there's this cycle of bad parents and horrible childhoods into new bad parents and more horrible childhoods into horrible adulthood, and it's a really depressing cycle, and it's really emphasized heavily in this entire flashback thing. Now I think we're going to go through the episode a little bit. We're not going to touch on everything because there's a lot of things here that I think all of us want to talk about more, and some things we really just whatever. But and I think I would, if this was a different episode, I would stop and be like, hey, what's your funniest line of the episode? But this episode really isn't that funny.
Well, I'd argue that they do a good job of like sneaking in darkly funny lines in this episode.
Yeah, there are some pretty dark lines, and if you want to talk with them now, I guess you can, but it's really not the focus
we'll probably get them as we go through the episode.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting as well. Sam, was there anything you want to highlight before we just start running down this episode and talking about it?
Nah.
Okay. I didn't think so, because they're not really the focus. There are some pretty funny lines that we're going to get to. I've written them down here. But this episode starts almost immediately at the end of season 3. We see Bojack standing, and it looks like he's about to go running with the horses. He's about to go run with these horses he saw. And Diane rings him. And this is a moment that exemplifies how Bojack was in season 3. Like, he has these two things he can choose between. He can either go running, or he can talk to Diane, and he does neither, and he loses the opportunity to do both. And it's just heartbreaking, because it's clear that he wants to do one of them, and he wants to do them to make himself feel better, but he just can't get himself to do either of them. And I don't know what else there is to talk about this. I don't know if you guys want to say anything about this opening scene or how you felt, but this was
it just seems
watching.
like a metaphor for how Bojack reacts to any opportunity he gets. He looks at it, but he gets distracted by something, whether it's internal or just something smaller that gives him an excuse to isolate himself. And so because he always falls for that distraction, he doesn't have the self-focus or self-determination that he loses opportunities like this all the time.
Yeah, and it just, like you said, it just keeps happening over and over again. We even have it multiple times in this episode that it happens again. This isn't the last time he does this. And this leads directly into this is probably the best scene with just Bojack in it, which is the scene with the horse with no name, that song playing.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a really good scene where he's driving off into the into the desert, and just, I don't know, it's the perfect song, and I don't know why I never realized they would use this song in this show. You really like this song? You really like this scene, Sam? Did you?
Yeah, Horse with No Name is one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Yeah, it was really great. It definitely captured a lot of loneliness and sadness.
Yeah.
I think they're just gonna run down all of the songs involving horses.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they had I think the song's called Wild Horses. I don't really remember.
Yeah. Stones.
They had that in the season 1. I don't know if they've had any else.
I think they have, but those are the two main ones. Wild Horses and now this one are the two they're about horses in their name.
Well, there's that U2 song of Who's Gonna Run Your Wild Horses.
Oh, yeah. There's that one too.
Heard that one today at work.
Were you on you were on the horse playlist?
Yeah, on the horse playlist, U2 just came on. I'm like, wow, Bojack Horseman should really use this song sometime.
Yeah. But, did you like the song too, Alex?
Definitely. I think it does well in setting the tone for the episode and just where Bojack is at the moment. Musically, I like America's version better, but Michelle Branch does fine in just modernizing the tone.
That was Michelle Branch, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wow. I always wondered what she was up to. I loved her when I was a kid.
She had that one song, right?
You're everywhere to me. When I close my eyes.
Michelle Branch feels like a name they would drop in like a 2003 flashback in this episode, in this show.
It does, but instead they just have her sing a song in the present.
It's 2003. This is a 2003 song.
Yeah, Michelle Branch would sing that. But
we did get a song.
I think the song as well.
But we did get a song like that later where they say the year 1944 in the song just to like make sure it's clear what year we're looking at. But before that, before we get to, we're not even at the credits yet. We're not even at the opening intro yet. He drives to his old family or his, I don't think it's clear. Do we know if Bojack lived in this house when he was a kid or did his mother?
He mentions that he visited there in the summers.
Okay. That's what I thought. I didn't think he lived there personally in like for a large part of his life. But he goes back to this old summer home. And he passes by, this might be one of the funnier jokes in the episode, where Harper's Landing, Michigan, where families used to vacation before the popularization of air travel to more exciting places. Like I really like, this is just the beginning of the kind of not really like slapstick humor, but more like, this place sucks, and Bojack sucks. And it's just like, that's what all the jokes kind of are. Like, Bojack's family sucks, this place sucks, and it just continues. All these jokes like this continue. But, and then he arrives, and it's just a shithole. It's just been, no one's lived there for years, and it's crap, and there's this angry dragonfly guy that's sitting on his, what's the word? Rocking chair? Porch in the rocking chair. And that's just where it ends. He looks at a painting, and it just cuts to the intro, and it's just like, just from that, this episode's gonna be a rough ride. I think you both watched it before me, and I watched the first 5 minutes and I messaged you, Alex, and I'm like, oh no, this is gonna suck. I knew right away that this episode is gonna be deep.
Yeah, it feels really early in the show, second episode, and we're already hitting this, so it sets the tone that for the rest of the season that this is gonna get dark quick this time.
That's definitely what caught me off guard too. I was not expecting something of this level of sadness and darkness this early in the season. This is to me, this is an episode 8 or 9 of a season, right before we hit Bojack's lowest or darkest moment. But this is episode 2. We have a long ways to go to see what's gonna happen here, and that really...
Yeah, we have 10 more episodes.
Yeah, this is gonna be bad. That's all, when I see this as episode 2, I think this is gonna be bad, not this is gonna be good. I don't think this is indicative of Bojack having 10 episodes of improving himself. I see this as 10 episodes of Bojack's gonna get even worse, which is really quite bad. Do you guys have an opinion? Do you think he's gonna get better or worse based on this, Sam?
I don't know. I mean,
I
don't know. I honestly, in my harder parts, I hope that it gets worse because I love being sad and pain and etc. But I don't know. We'll see.
Do you have
It's weird because, in the span of one episode, we've gone pretty much a whole year.
Yeah.
So, superficially, I would say, yes, it shows he's going to get better because he decides to move on from this house by the end. But at the same time, it took him a year to get to that conclusion. So, you're left in the same place.
Also, him leaving wasn't exactly didn't have one of his greatest moments exactly, but I think we'll get to that. So, we've been kind of skirting around that. So, I think we're going to get into this. Because from here on, it's really just one plot now. It's just the flashbacks and Eddie for the rest of the episode now. So I think we're going to really get into the meat of this episode, and it's going to be pretty sad. So after the intro, it immediately pops back in, and we see Bojack's mom and her parents, essentially, and that's Bojack's grandparents, and they're having sort of breakfast. The grandmother's making... actually, let's just say the name so I don't have to keep saying grandmother. It's Honey Sugarman, who is Bojack's grandmother. There's Beatrice, who is Bojack's mom. And is it Joseph is his grandfather?
Yeah.
Joseph Sugarman. And then there's Crackerjack. And Crackerjack, who is his, is
maternal
brother.
Uncle.
Yeah, uncle. Thank you. I forgot the word uncle. Uncle's a hard word. Anyways, so Beatrice is watching Honey make pancakes for her husband, and she lets Beatrice get a whiff of them, and she sets them down, and Beatrice can't have any of them, and it's just kind of it looks almost like a normal 1940s breakfast, and then they all get up, and they're getting a picture, and Crackerjack walks in, and it's and you realize that, it is 1944, and we already knew that, but we didn't really I didn't necessarily process it at this point, and you see Crackerjack walk in wearing a military uniform with one of his friends who's also in a military uniform, and it's clear that he's about to go to war. He's about to go to fight Nazis in World War II, and at that moment I realized, oh, this is gonna be really bad. Like, did both of you get that feeling, like, right away? Did you feel that, Alex, that it was gonna get, like, as soon as you saw him in a military uniform in 1944, that it was gonna get really depressing really fast?
Not yet, because, like, I feel if you're gonna put a thing in the 40s and World War II, like, that's inevitable. So the two hadn't connected to me. I just felt it was cliche at that point. It's not till we get later we see what it ends up being.
Did you have any inkling of what was gonna happen here, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, like a young man in like a military uniform.
Hey, he's a young horse.
A young horse, excuse me. Yeah, it doesn't send a good message.
Yeah, this is definitely like, and this is like the beginning. This is like the beginning of their plot, that he comes in and they're singing. He's singing a song with his mom, and it's really, really happy, which is always a fear when you're watching Bojack Horseman, that it's a really happy family, and you know it's Bojack's family. So I'm like, this cannot go well for the rest of the episode. But before we move on, go ahead.
Well, and the funny part about that song, it's very happy, but the lyric is like, days go so fast, memories they last, and that's recurring throughout the episode.
Yeah.
But right now it's happy, but it takes on a whole different meaning once you get to the end of the episode.
Yeah, the song just continues to evolve as the episode goes on, and you're just like, wow, this is not, and it does come off in kind of a nostalgic, almost happy way the first time they sing it. It's not like they're just singing a sad song happily. Like, the way they're singing, like, yeah, I'm really glad I have these memories with you, and then later it's like, I don't want these memories. Like, I wish I didn't have them anymore, because I wish you were just back. But yeah, it's so sad by the end. But before we get to that, we get the beginning of our kind of the almost iconic to 1940s really crappy humor. We get that mostly Joseph says. He says, "But who else but I will make sure the numbers add up and compliment my secretary on her tight sweater." We get a bunch of lines like this that are just like completely not correct to say nowadays, but they just like throw these lines out like they're normal, and I think they're pretty
what
funny.
about my secretary's self-esteem?
Yeah, stuff like that. I think the funniest of those was probably the where was it? It's the one with the uterus. Don't lift that, you might rupture your uterus. I found that pretty funny.
God, that was terrible.
I prefer it will always be here, just like polio and blackface.
Yes, that was also a really great one. And these jokes continue through the flashbacks, and I think I'd rather talk about them now, because this is the lighter flashback, and after this they get really bad. I'd rather talk about...
Yeah, he's Matthew Broderick. Matthew Broderick.
Yeah.
Yeah, a familiar face, I'm sure.
Yeah, this was a pretty funny gag. Like, it's kind of one note, and I've seen it before, but this one, they do it really well here, and they do it really well, that's all. I was really surprised that I didn't find it, not that, I usually find these things a little off base, I think the word is. I'm looking for.
I think it helps that Matthew Broderick has just a very old-timey voice.
Yeah, he does.
His voice works perfectly with the types of jokes he's giving.
Oh, and no. We skipped over the worst one. The worst one was when, after, spoiler, if Cracker Jack dies. If you're listening to this, you should have watched the episode already, by the way. He has a line about how if there's anyone to blame, it's the Jews for peeving off Hitler so bad.
Oh my god.
It was like, are you kidding me? That was probably the worst line of the entire episode, in an episode with a lot of really messed up lines. I think if this, honestly, I think if they were writing this season now, they might not have put that line in. I think the climate has changed a little bit since they wrote it, but, which is too bad, but, not that it's, maybe too bad is the wrong word, but it's,
not that making fun of Jewish people is ever good.
No, I'm Jewish.
I'm saved by the time period.
Yes, I'm Jewish. I didn't think this was offensive, but I do think it might be a little... with the current climate, I think it's a little bit off. It's a little wrong right now. It might not be the right time for this kind of joke. But I think when they were writing it was fine. It's hard, but I was okay with it as a Jewish person. But it was definitely probably the worst joke they made. It was probably the darkest thing they said in the past. But then after this, it's like... here on out, we're just going to be talking about some of the it's a bunch of sucker punches from now on, because after this, we get Bojack wakes up in the house and he wants to fix it, and he breaks the faucet, I think, and he goes to a hardware store to get some stuff, and he meets up with Tamara and Tamara. Did you guys like Tamara and Tamara? Sam, did you like them?
No.
They were pretty awful, and I don't know if you noticed, but they were employee of the month alternating on the back wall because they're the only ones that work there.
Well, what about the stock boy? He deserves an employee of the month.
It's pretty clear that he did. He looks like Bojack. That's his only redeeming quality. Come on.
He's a donkey!
Exactly. He looks like a jackass.
Exactly.
Oh
Yeah, Alex, you get it. But, yeah, and then they have a conversation, and they almost immediately upon Bojack arriving, once they realize it's Bojack, they ask, so you were there when Sarah Lynn died. And it just brings to the surface all these things Bojack's running away from. And there's a little bit of conversation after that, but the main point is that they bring up these memories of Sarah Lynn, and that this is going to be, like, it makes it pretty clear that this episode's going to be focusing on it. 'Cause I think we're still within the first 10 minutes of the episode right now that all this stuff has happened. All this pretty depressing stuff has already happened and lead into pretty depressing stuff. And so he goes home, he tries to fix the faucet, he thinks he's done it, and then he falls through the floor. And then he breaks the faucet, and then he punches the wall. And he goes back and gets some more stuff to fix it. And he finds out that Paul Giamatti is playing himself in a Sarah Lynn documentary. What was it called? Dead American Girl or something like that?
Yeah, I feel like it was just like a send-off of like almost American Horror Story, except for
American Crime Story, like the O.J. Simpson miniseries.
Dead American Girls.
Yeah.
Tragedy of women.
Which we actually get to see this miniseries a little later in the episode, but I think we'll wait till we get to that scene, because I think that scene. It's crazy that I can say that I think it's the third best scene of this episode, because this episode's incredible. There are like 5 scenes I can count on my hand that I'm just like, wow, that was an incredible scene of television that got me that was either incredibly emotional or just completely heartbreaking, or both. And that's really hard for one episode of television to do, to be like, holy crap, I can't decide what was the best part of it. But after this, he falls through at this point there is one more flashback, a short one. And he goes back and he starts fixing the stuff, and he's failing pretty miserably to fix everything after he breaks the door. And at this point, we're introduced to Eddie, who is our third broken person of this episode. The third person who has someone who's lost something and doesn't know how to live with it. And at this point we start mixing together Honey Sugarman, Bojack Horseman, and Eddie together over and over again into this cycle of like, we're all hurting, we're all in pain, but none of us know what we want to fix it. Did you guys like Eddie? Did you relate to him? Did you like him at all? Alex, how did you feel about Eddie?
He was funny, like, in that sense, he was entertaining to watch the entire episode. On the emotional side, I feel like maybe because it's contrasting with deeper topics like Bojack, we know a lot, and Beatrice, who's gone through shit. Yeah. Like, Eddie, in comparison, doesn't seem that affecting, but it works for the episode. He's definitely a fun character to have around for this one.
I think fun is a strong word, in my opinion. Fun is like, he might have been fun when he was helping Bojack fix stuff, but after that.
Yeah, exactly. There I like him. And but like his breakdown at the end, I mean, I don't know. It didn't land the same as the other sides of this.
We'll get into that. I'm sure we'll talk about that breakdown. Sam, how did you like Eddie, at least at the beginning during like the construction stuff?
I mean, I'm sure he's a really nice guy. I personally don't know him that well, but I'm sure he's nice. I don't feel like he really added that much to the was it A plot, B plot, whatever plot Bojack.
There's really only one plot here.
Yeah, I don't think he added that much. In fact, I think he kind of like took away what could have been just like more poignant moments than if he weren't there.
That's interesting.
So I don't know. And also at the end, it's like Bojack just says, "Okay, bye." And who knows what that is, so.
I'm surprised. I actually liked Eddie a lot. I think a lot more than both of you. And I just, not connected to him, but I understood. I felt really bad with his relationship with Bojack, and that hit me really hard. And maybe that's what I'm feeling more than liking Eddie himself, because he himself was not that interesting, I guess. But I think he played his part fairly well, and he really, he's what made that, him and Honey Sugarman made this scene at the barn really incredible. But that, we're gonna talk about that in a second. But, this is when we get, but anyways, so now we get to, I think, the third best scene of this episode, which is this scene in the winter with Bojack freezing in the house watching the miniseries while we're also getting flashbacks to Cracker Jack being dead at the same time. This scene was incredibly painful for me. I was watching Bojack hear some words that he'd heard on the news that we already know that he doesn't like talking about how this was bound to happen, and he said last season that it wasn't, and he's watching this again, and it's just horrible. He's just wallowing in everything. He's wallowing again in his emotions. We know that he does this all the time, but at the same time, we're also getting this sucker punch of Cracker Jack's dead, Honey Sugarman's in immense pain, and this scene is almost perfect in my opinion. Did you guys really Did you feel this, Alex? Did this scene really hit you really hard?
It didn't hit me as hard as the later scenes, but I did find interesting the contrast because on the one hand you have Bojack, who feels like he failed Sarah Lynn, and we've seen that that's true, that he had many chances to help, and he just didn't do it. On the other hand, you have Honey, who also feels like she failed Cracker Jack. But as far as we know, there's really nothing that she could have done. But Honey's emotions and Bojack's emotions are practically the same, even though they're on totally different spectrums of the responsibility index. So what most interesting in that scene was just how they balanced those two sides of the story, and the fact that both people could come to a similar emotional result.
Yeah, there definitely was this thematic through line between them where it was just like, I can see the connection. They're both, I could see either character saying the lines they said about how sad they were. They were just, and when this is the first time when she sits down at the piano and she starts playing and she just closes it immediately, right? This is the first time that happens. Or the second time she sits at the piano. This is the first of 3 times the piano is involved in the episode. Yeah. And then she sits down to start playing it and she just can't do it because she thinks about Cracker Jack. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to watch somebody who clearly loved their child, like most people love their children a lot, but she was gone. Some people cope with it a lot better than other people when their children die, and she was just not coping well. And a lot of it has to do with this, with her husband really was not being that supportive. He did not know how to help her. And it was played off as a joke, but this is a real thing. This is a real thing where people don't understand how to deal with grief. And it was horrible watching and seeing that Beatrice was the only person willing to stay with her mom. That should be how it is.
Yeah, if we're jumping ahead a little to when they come back in the summer with the first time without Cracker Jack, yeah, the dad walks out like, as a modern American man.
Was that not in the winter scene? I apologize.
No,
I'm mixing because there's a lot of flashbacks in the house. I apologize.
Yeah, but while we're on the subject,
I think these connect. I think these scenes connect pretty well.
Yeah. But in the next scene, he says, as a modern American man, I am woefully unprepared to handle a woman's emotions. I was not taught, and I will never learn.
Yeah.
So just that kind of attitude, it's very damaging to someone who needs the support just then, and you just walk out on them. It's something that we've all felt at some point, and just
And even worse, you can see how this connects to Bojack. You can see how this leads to what happens to Bojack in his childhood. And that's probably the worst part of all of this. You can see not only how Beatrice turned into what she is, you can see how Beatrice turned Bojack into what he is as you're watching these arguments, as you're watching this really horrible stuff. And it's a tragedy of so many characters at the same time, and it's really tough to watch. Sam, no, I think how is probably the wrong word, but did you think these scenes were as good as I did?
I think, in retrospect, there are other, parts, especially, the barn stuff that,
hit
me harder, but, as I was watching it for the first time, I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Bojack just, sitting, laying down in the cold, with, icicles, coming off of his face.
Yeah.
And just, ignoring Diane's call to just sort of, wallow in this fictionalized version of himself. And wallow in, an event that, happened, that he knew that, what happened.
Yeah.
that, other people are like perceiving, as well as, juxtaposing that to, of course, Honey and Crackerjack and Beatrice and etc. I don't know. I think it like took me like a minute or so, minute by minute, I mean like after I watched the episode, to really like think about how, these two narratives sort of intertwined, because at first I was like, well, I don't really feel a real connection between, this 1940s, skip, do sort of like, mentality, in contrast with, 2017, Bojack's, depressing world, apart from the whole, like, familial relationship thing.
Yeah.
But I think that it actually works pretty well, and it works in ways that are more surprising than, just like a straight, sort of like analogy, just, two different time periods, two different kinds of people.
Yeah.
And how they deal with grief.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's more of a, I think, the way I see it, it's more of a feeling. It just their grief feels similar. It's not that, there's not necessarily a direct comparison between them or analogy, like you said. It's just that they have similar feelings towards what they've lost. And that's more what I think they're going for. They're not going for like, hey, these people are exact foils. They're going for, hey, these people are all broken. And they're broken in different ways. And they were kind of in these places at the same time. But their stories don't actually cross that much. It's just that they're all sad and broken in the same place. And it hits really hard in some parts of this plot. Like, this is like just prelude, what we're talking about here, to possibly one of the saddest things I think I've seen in this show, which is very impressive, considering how much sad shit happened just in season 3. And so this prelude leads directly into, Eddie and Bojack building the house together, repairing the house. And like any other perfect Bojack episode, it, starts with looking like, hey, Bojack's kind of feeling better. Bojack's doing something right, and he's accepting this help, and he's making sort of a friend, it seems like. And I do it every time. Every time it happens, I'm like, is he getting better? And I always, not forget's the wrong word, but I always expect him to be better. And did you guys even for a second think, did you think for a second, Alex, that this was going to stick? That him being better was going to stick?
Not particularly, just because, like, I mean, when you're in a situation like this, you'll have good days and you'll have bad days. Yeah. And like, but Bojack here, I took it more as just him having a good day, like having a specific goal in mind.
A good 8 months.
It's times where, yeah, but like in this case, like building the house. Yeah. Whereas when he arrived there, he's like, he didn't really have a goal in mind. He was just there to escape.
Yeah.
So because of that, but giving him something to do is what makes him a better person to the people around him. And that's also why, like, by the end, when they finish the house, that's where he starts, like, going back to his old self, because by then he no longer has a specific goal in mind.
No, he's lost his goal, and he's searching for something that he can do to. I think he genuinely believes that fixing this house will fix him. That he thinks he wants to be around Eddie. Being around Eddie is helping him, and he thinks that fixing this house at the same time will make it better. I think I know how you feel, Sam, but did you even think for a second that this was going to stick?
Not really. I mean, Bojack, like, really fluctuates, and he's been the same person all of his life. Especially, since, like, the end of Horsing Around, middle of Horsing Around, whenever Herb got fired.
Like early 2000s or something.
Yeah. So he has been in the same rut, and it seems to me that, like, he'll start to, like, sort of feel better and start to, like, have more of a purpose, but then that, like, event or, time period ends, and, the person in question, Eddie, in this instance, he's like, okay, bye, I'm gonna, go back to my house, but Bojack's like, oh, no, wait, we gotta do the thing.
The weather
main. We gotta do that, we gotta find it. Because, I don't want this to end, and he isn't good at expressing his emotions like that. He desperately doesn't want to be alone, but at the same time, he has to be alone, he feels like, and that's all, like, he can be.
And that sentiment's expressed by his grandmother. I think I'm trying to find the line. I can't be with people and I can't be alone. And that is the epitome of Bojack. He definitely wants to be around people, but he also doesn't know how to do it. And this is it. All he had to do for Eddie was just say thank you. He just had to thank him, and he would maybe find a way to lead into more conversations and talking, but he just couldn't do that. He couldn't find those words. He couldn't find the ability to just, I don't know, be happy, because that's the wrong words for it. You can't just be happy, but he went the wrong direction, as always, towards the thing that he wanted. And
yeah, he goes into sort of like a manipulative sort of thing.
And it's almost like not cute, but it's almost like playful. It's almost playful, like, hey, we're not done yet. We need to keep building. But because it's Bojack, I know that's not what it is. Like, if it was any other character, I'd be like, hey, this is kind of playful. This is like, hey, we're building a house together. Let's keep doing it. But with Bojack, you know that it's not that. He's not doing it for Eddie too. He's doing it purely for himself. This is purely a selfish thing for him to do, because he just wants to keep feeling something. He wants to keep feeling like he's doing something correct in his life, because nothing else is going right. And this leads to the first time we see Eddie. Well, it was hinted at, but we see that Eddie has a wife who's dead. His wife died, and he hasn't been flying yet, and we see that he's flying in his wedding video with his wife. And I don't think this is really a surprising twist. I think it's pretty predictable. But I think it's done well. It's done well enough to get us to the actual powerful scene that follows it, which is the barn scene where Eddie plays on the piano. And I'm having it when I think about this scene at the barn with Honey Sugarman and Eddie playing singing and playing piano. It's probably one of the toughest things I have to listen to in this show. The lines in this song, like, it would be really on the nose, but the thing is, this is like a real song, isn't it? This is like a real song, right?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? Well, I think it is. This doesn't sound like something.
We should have Googled this.
I'm pretty sure. I think I did Google it. The problem is I'm really tired, and I think I forgot if I did. But this is, either way, this song is just so hard. Like, there's lines in here about, I will always think of you, but memories, they last. No, I don't want to be alone now. Like, stuff like that. And the final line of this song, I'll take flight, maybe tomorrow, not tonight, is just heartbreaking. These people really want to fix it. They really want to go somewhere and do something better with their lives, or at least something better from their perspective, and they just can't. They can't get themselves out of this rut, and it almost feels wrong that Bojack didn't hear his grandmother's side of the song, because that's the side this I'll take flight thing is on. Because I feel like if he knew that his family was always like this, if he knew that his family was also struggling with these kinds of emotions, he might feel something about that, but he doesn't hear that. He just hears Eddie, and he sees that Eddie's sad. He doesn't connect that to himself, I don't think. And
yeah, I just want to say that, like, it's an interesting cycle, right? Because Bojack rarely expresses his emotions to other people. Maybe Diane, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Beatrice, look what all she had to go through. But do you think she ever told any of this to Bojack?
No. I think the ending of this episode really makes it clear that she never told him a single thing.
Exactly, and see, that's the cycle, right? If everybody internalizes their emotions, then nobody ever gets out of it.
Yeah. Oh man. It's bad. It's really bad.
Like for me personally, like the song was okay, but I think where it hit me most is just like her reactions afterwards, where she starts like going like crazy, like trying to get information from people and just breaking down in public. It's like something like you can escape yourself in music, or if you have another hobby. You can like distract yourself with these things, but when it comes down to it, and you feel a need for something, and then you just lose control of yourself to the point where, she like begins kissing people and like getting down to her knees and things like that.
Yeah,
just stuff that she just can't control at that point.
Yeah,
that scene hurt more to me just because like I feel that's the more relatable part, like what to do when you don't have anything to distract yourself with.
It's bad, and this her breaking down almost completely mirrors some of the time I think almost mirrors directly Bojack breaking down at the end of season 3 with any of the times he did, and it's just heartbreaking seeing just how his family's like this. The people in his family are like this, and it's this cycle of pain and depression that just keeps going on, and I am watching this scene, watching this episode makes me really scared for Bojack's daughter, or possible daughter, and the depression that can come from that, because I want her to be happy too. I don't want anybody to feel like these people feel, but people just keep feeling this way because of things that Bojack does, things that his mother did, things that everybody's done, and it just keeps going. Sam, I don't know how do you feel about this? I don't think you've said much on this scene.
I mean, what else is there to say?
Yeah.
Of course, pain and suffering in families is like a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it doesn't really specifically any one person's fault.
Yeah.
Like, Cracker Jack died in the war, he got killed. And so, that really fucked up Honey, which fucked up Beatrice. And Beatrice, fucked up Bojack. And, who knows, Bojack just fucks up everybody. And it's just this, like, vicious cycle of, pain and negligence and abuse and just, it sucks.
Yeah.
And it really humanizes, horse-anizes, whatever, that, struggle of grief and loss and, sort of resentment and wishing that things could have been different, but they aren't. And, you have to, and, sometimes people deal with it by being cold, like Beatrice was to Bojack. Sometimes people deal with it by getting like a lobotomy. It's just, or like, sometimes, Bojack deals with it by his various addictions. And it sucks. And it sucks that, life is like that, but life is definitely like that for tons of people. And, I really have to applaud the show for showing that. And showing that, not every bad thing a person does makes them bad. It's just a series of unfortunate events, sorry. A series of events that just led up to, making them the person that they are.
Yeah, and that I'm pretty sure that's what we're supposed to get out of this. That just there was nothing anyone did wrong. It's just bad things lead to horrible emotions, lead to more bad stuff happening sometimes. That's just how it works. Like, we see this immediately. Oh, sorry, what were you going to say, Alex?
Well, I mean, you said, like, nobody did anything wrong, but as we'll see, like, there is one person who we can say maybe made things a little worse.
I'm saying at this point in this point in the episode, no one's really done anything wrong in this direct episode. There's things before and after it that people do wrong, but at this point in the narrative of this episode, no one's really done anything wrong, just some bad stuff has happened. Bad things have happened to people, and they're not really dealing with it in ways that are healthy, but I'm not sure I can blame them. I don't think I can judge them for that. I don't feel like I can blame Honey Sugarman for how she acted about finding out her son is dead. Her son died. But there's definitely a healthy way to deal with it, but it's just, it's hard as someone who has not dealt with grief like that to be like, I can't just say, hey, get over it. Like, that's not how it works. It's painful. It's painful when stuff like that happens in your life. But in this scene, so I think we'll get to we'll move on to the next part, because all this stuff just leads right into the next, and so we're gonna want to talk about it anyways. And so after this, we'll get to the kind of a chase scene with Bojack running around in the background while Honey gets handed another drink and told to drive. She gets one more drink to steady her nerves before she drives home with her young daughter. And at the same time, quote unquote, Honey gets in her car and tells Beatrice to drive, and Bojack and Eddie get in their car and start to drive away with the Weatherman. And this is kind of the climax of emotions in many ways. This is the peak of Bojack's pseudo happiness, and this is the peak of Honey's sadness. This is the last time that she really feels anything from our perspective, because after this, you've hinted at it, we've talked about it a little bit. She gets lobotomized, and this is the last time we really see her alive. She's in pain.
Yeah, actually, she literally screams, "I'd do anything to feel alive."
Yeah, she'd do anything, and she realizes that she can't, and it breaks her. This is the scene where she breaks, and you're watching these two cars race next to each other in flashback and I was watching it worried, like, because you knew something bad was going to happen when they both got in their cars, and it just was unclear which car was going to be the one that went wrong, I think. I don't even know how to phrase this question, but Sam, how did you feel about this car scene? Because it was pretty emotional, pretty painful to watch.
Yeah, that fucks somebody up if you gotta, try to save yourself and your mother in a car crash, and it's just, I don't know, dude. It was a lot.
It's too much, man.
I think here is like where I start to feel more for Beatrice, because up to now she'd mostly just been viewing Honey's descent. But, like, here now she's actually thrown into it. Like, now she's put in a position where she has to actually, like, keep her alive. And, like, that's a lot of stress to put on someone, especially someone as young and not as emotionally developed as Beatrice was at that point. Yeah. So then you also think, like, well, what effect would this have on her development? Like, just that scene alone would already be very detrimental. But now when you combine that with what happens next.
Yeah. And they get into a car crash, and it's horrible, but they get put into the backseat at this point. We don't actually see the aftermath of this for a few more minutes, because we immediately jump back to Bojack's story, and we're left a little in suspense here about how that ended. And for a little bit, I actually thought that Honey had died in the car crash, but obviously that's not what happened, and what happened actually is a lot worse. Because honestly, she's not dead, but she's not there anymore. She's gone. The Honey that we saw at the beginning of this episode is gone after this car crash, and it's horrible.
Now, I want to ask a question here, like, honestly, because she mentions, like, please fix me. I want to be better. So, do we think that she went into this lobotomy voluntarily, or was it at the urge of the husband?
I think it's supposed to be ambiguous, but if I had to guess, I think if you pin me down and asked me which one it was and I had to give an answer, I think it was on purpose, and she didn't realize what it actually entailed, because this is 1940s, and she probably didn't recognize exactly what the consequences of doing this were, and I would not be surprised if she actually asked him to do this to her.
Because, like, either way, it gives you an interesting perspective, right? Does. Because if she decides to do it on her own, then that's just like a reflection of to what extremes a person will go to get rid of their sadness. Like, as we see with Bojack, he gets to the point of drug overdoses and alcohol to drown his sorrows, and Honey had to go to this. But now if you want to go on the other side, and it's the husband who resorts to that point, then there you can take it as, like, just the total lack of a support system, and how if a person is there to not give you the emotional support that you need at such an important time, and just lets you go on your path, and that's very destructive, and also something that Bojack has had to go through with Sarah Lynn, right? Because essentially Bojack gave Sarah Lynn her death in providing her with the Bojack cocaine, right?
Yeah.
So either way, it's just an interesting contrast to how Bojack has dealt with his depression and mental illness thus far.
And I think that's supposed to be here. I think we're supposed to feel this contrast through the entire episode, and it does hurt. It does hurt watching this. But there's actually we can talk about the Lobotomy a little bit more in a second, but before we get to that, there's actually one other scene we get from Bojack before that, which is he pushes himself off the roof to try to get Eddie to fly. And he essentially is trying to force what he's doing is he's trying to force therapy on Eddie in a way that, in the most Bojack way possible, and he breaks this person. He breaks another person in his life, and
What an asshole.
yeah, do you want to talk about this to him? Do you want to say something about this? You seem pretty angry.
Oh my god, like, Bojack. Bojack's probably one of my favorite characters ever. Because, like, he's so flawed and whatever.
Yeah.
But what a fucking asshole. Like, come on. You throw yourself off of a fucking roof, you break the gazebo that, like, you and your buddy were working on for forever, and, you, like, fucking trigger an existential whatever crisis in this man, and you almost get yourself killed also, while he's, like, making a suicide attempt. So,
Yeah.
You know what? Bojack, you gotta just calm down.
Yeah. It's painful. It's painful to watch, because you can see, it's like in that moment, because this is almost like the most Bojack he is in this episode where he does this, and that's depressing to think about, that this is the most Bojack we see him at when he pushes himself off the roof and he forces this on this guy, and he's done this with everybody in his life. I don't think that's an overstatement. I think he's done it with everybody. He tries to fix people because he thinks he knows how to, because he's broken too. He thinks he can see the pieces, and that just seeing the pieces doesn't make you someone able to fix people. That's not how it works. People's minds aren't jigsaw puzzles, and I think Bojack partially wishes they were. He wishes he could see his problems and just kind of fit them into place, and he'd be fine then. And
He also just pushes people to their limits.
Yeah,
and
he does
it's like,
that too.
Beyond their limits, and it's just not cool.
It's not cool is probably the lightest way to put it, because after that, Eddie flies them up and, like you said, tries to commit suicide, but he also tries to kill Bojack while doing it. And in the process, Bojack knocks Eddie out by headbutting him, and they fall into the pond behind the Sugarman house. And Bojack essentially uses CPR on Eddie and gets him, not brings him back to life, but saves his life. And we get this moment where Eddie's like, I don't want to live anymore. And it just reflects everything we've been seeing so far. This is the third person now we see who just doesn't want to live anymore, doesn't want to live around people, doesn't know how to act around people. And this is the third person in a row. But the sad thing about this one is that he was living comfortably. He was alive, and Bojack jumped into his life and ruined it. Bojack ruined this guy's life. And he's sitting there saying, I don't want to live anymore. And instead of Bojack comforting him or doing anything, Bojack just leaves him. And this is almost the most, like, Sarah Lynn dying is the worst thing that happened on the show, but in a lot of ways Bojack was indirectly the cause of this, in that he didn't specifically want her to die. This time he's standing next to someone who is definitely suicidal. He hears them say it, and he just walks away. And in that moment, I was so mad at Bojack. I'm like, Bojack, you need to do something here. You caused this. You need to fix it. And he just leaves it on the ground broken. And
Well, yeah, like at the same time, like I can see where he is at that moment where it's like, well, I tried to make it better. It failed. Now imagine what I'm going to do. I'm just speaking like through the mind of Bojack.
Yeah,
Like, well, if I try doing something else, I'm only going to make this worse.
And
I have to walk away. And that's his issue, right? Because
Yeah.
whenever things get rough, he walks away from things.
Yeah.
But the problem is that in doing that, you never really get a chance to improve.
Yeah.
But when you walk away from things once they become difficult, right?
Yeah, he essentially breaks something, and that's when he walks away, because he doesn't understand the way to fix himself, or one of the ways to help fix his life is that he needs to own up to these things, and not in the way that he does to Todd. He can't own up in the way like, oh, I'm just bad, I was drunk, I was bad. It's like, no, it's you, Bojack. You need to own up to this and actually do something by not making it about you. Because that's what he does every time when something like this happens. He makes it about himself, which he does at the end of this episode too. He makes it about himself. He acts like Eddie's the one who was wrong when it really wasn't. Eddie did something bad. He did almost kill Bojack, but somehow he wasn't the one who was wrong here. He was the one who was hurt. He's the one who was hurt by Bojack, and it's really painful. It's really painful, this entire scene. And then to add to it, immediately after this is when we get to the scene with Joseph Sugarman in the is it Joseph? I keep forgetting. It's Joseph, right?
Yeah, Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph Sugarman with Honey and Beatrice in their house, and they're all hurt and covered in blood, and their dresses are ripped, and we get this horrifying scene where almost, and I'm saying heartbreaking a lot, but that's just this episode, this heartbreaking scene where she gets on her knees and tells her husband, please fix me. I want you to fix me. And she's doing the same thing that Bojack does. She's pushing off her problem. She doesn't want to put in the work to fix it. And it results in the most, maybe the darkest thing that we've seen this entire show. And it's really painful. Alex, were you okay watching this? Like finding out that it was a lobotomy? Did that really hit you hard?
I mean, was I okay watching it? Sure, because this show throws anything at me.
Yeah, I know.
But like, yeah, did it hit hard? Definitely, because like, I mean, lobotomy isn't a thing that we really use in modern media. So
no.
It's just a thing that, like, exists, but you never really see it happen. But yeah, just the idea of, like, totally numbing yourself. It's something that, like, as a depressed person, you wish that could happen some days, that you just were incapable of feeling anything. At least that way you won't feel pain, right?
Yeah.
But other days, then you have to think of the consequences of that. Like, if you don't feel pain, then you don't feel any of the other important emotions. But I think what hurt more is, like, she's still she's still conscient enough to say to Beatrice, promise me you'll never love anyone as much as I love Cracker Jack. Even in that state, she recognizes that that's what pushed her over the edge. The fact that she had put so much of her self-worth into somebody else that she just couldn't handle it when that source of self-worth disappeared.
Yeah. All I can say is yes. It's really bad, but I could talk about this a lot, but before I do, Sam, this lobotomy and the reaction from Beatrice, do you agree this might be the dark point of this entire show at this point?
I don't know if it's the dark point of the entire show. I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that either.
You don't? You guys don't think it is?
No.
I'm actually surprised
I think
by
moments with Bojack have gotten much darker. Like, I think That's Too Much Man still is on top. Like, just because, like, that is something in the present, whereas here it's presented as something in the past to, like, frame why things are the way they are today. But, I think because it's in the past, it doesn't hit as hard, but it's definitely a dark thing and a way to explain why things have happened.
It hits me hard when she says, promise me you'll never love anyone as much as I love Cracker Jack, because that statement, that phrase, it leads to everything that Bojack is. Because that's what she did. Definitely. And that's what hits me so hard, because I'm watching this and I'm seeing this woman who's been essentially killed by this medicine, by this taking out of her, by this lobotomy, and we're seeing the creation of Bojack's mother. This isn't Beatrice anymore. This is Bojack's mother in my eyes now. This is the person that will raise Bojack into the person he is now. And it's horrifying to me. And I agree. If I had to rank it, I would put it. That's Too Much Man. Like that is number 2. That is number 2 in my head. But right now, this one, it might be because I just watched the episode not like an hour or two ago. But right now, that is at the top for me, and it's really, really bad. It really hurts. Yeah.
Mm.
And then
I don't know if this is the place to put it, but just like the way this flashback ends is just like a callback, because at the beginning of the episode she said, like, why I have a half a mind to kiss you. But here's just why I have a half a mind.
Yeah, I was about to mention that. There. It's a little on the nose. That might be a little too on the nose for me, but it does.
But like for me, it worked. Like that's the perfect ending for it.
I think in a worse show it would not have been done right, but somehow it works really well here. Like she says it, and then the camera just, not actual camera, but you know what I mean. But the shot like slowly pans backwards, and we get a wider shot of this house, and it hurts. It hurts hearing her say that, and it switching over to Bojack. And after that we get actually before the lobotomy, I think we kind of skipped it, but everything kind of mixes together in this. Like, everything's sad and depressing. We get Bojack calling Diane, finally.
Yeah, that fucked me up.
Yes. Do you want to talk about it, Sam?
Bojack was like, everything sucks. You know, I love Bojack and Diane's rapport so much. And I love that, Diane considers Bojack somebody that, she needs in her life. And, it's the same for Bojack. And they're just two, fucked up kindred spirits who just found each other and somehow, support each other.
But this moment, he essentially lies to her about what's going on.
That's true.
And it's just, Bojack, no, not everything sucks. You suck. You need to, admitting it to yourself is, the first step to fixing it. If you don't admit to yourself that there's a problem with how you're acting, you're never going to fix it. And instead it sounds like, from a viewer's perspective, it seems like he's pushing it off on Eddie. Would you agree with that, Sam?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, just for me, I think that because he has such a friendship with Diane, when he says everything sucks, I think Diane gets it, what that means, that it's not actually things around him, it's just him in his current state. And, for me personally, I actually found that scene to be kind of a sliver of hope, just because Bojack is able to find comfort in his darkest times. He has, a safe space, something that, for example, Beatrice didn't have at that time. Where could she go at that time to escape her problems, right? So, while escaping totally is a wrong thing, because we see Bojack does this all the time, he escapes. But at the same time, you do need someone to go to when you're at your darkest moment, just to at least get you to a semblance of sanity. He gets back to his, making fun of others, thinking about Hollywood. Things that he wouldn't be doing if he was just alone in that house, or talking to Eddie for that matter.
There's a difference between getting back to a semblance of normalcy and just pushing it all away, and that's what he's doing here. He's not just letting himself calm down before, confronting this. He's just literally saying, no, I'm not going to confront this at all. And that's wrong, because he did something wrong here, like he does all the time, and he's not talking about it. And whether Diane's the right person or not, I'm not sure, but he needs to find someone to talk to this about. Because obviously it's not working with him meeting new people, ruining them, and moving on to the next person. That process isn't working for him. I don't know what would work.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think that would be the moment to really talk about those things, but
I'm not sure if it is, but it feels like it doesn't feel like we're moving towards that in this scene. It feels like we're moving towards Bojack is pushing it all away again. That's what it feels like to me, at least. He's not going to talk about it again.
If anything, I feel the pushing off is more evident in the final scene.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah. There's also even the final scene is emotional, even though he just says, what is it? He says, suck a dick, dumb shit? Because that's Sarah Lynn's thing.
As a great woman said, suck a dick, dumb shit.
Yeah, and somehow, and this show is so amazing because that hurts, him saying that. It hurts when he says that.
Did it? I maybe I'm just dark here, but I laughed.
No, I laughed too, but at the same time, it was more like a wet laugh. I'm like, oh no, Sarah Lynn's gone.
What hurt me the most is that, I guess we'll explain that he decides to destroy the house.
Yeah.
Eddie's like, well, what was all this for? And Bojack's just, I don't know. That's basically his whole life, right?
Yeah.
In a nutshell. And then you just hear, you see the wrecking ball go, hits the credits, and you hear all the demolition sounds in the background. For some reason, that is what
that really hurts. Hearing that.
He's just leaving it behind and forgetting about it. You used 6 months of your life.
It was more than 6. It was almost a year. It was 8 months of fixing, and it was a few months before that living in the house before he started to.
Right, but you spend all that time, and in the end, it's nothing.
Yeah.
What an asshole.
Yeah. It was... I don't know. And there is... I agree with you at this point that there is an air of almost optimism that he's breaking himself down. Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. That he's breaking things down and he's going to build it back up for himself. He's going to build up maybe his own... I don't know how to put this. I don't know how to because it's not happiness he's looking for.
Well, moving on, basically, right?
Yeah.
Because the way he frames it is this is just a shrine to getting off on my guilt.
Yes.
So just the existence of that house just reminds him of what he was doing for the past couple of months, and he decides, well, that phase is over. I want to get back at least to my normal life and work from there. So in that sense, it's justifiable, but at the same time, you have to think well, then where did that time actually go?
Yeah.
What was it in the end, for good or for not?
And then you also think, was it good for Bojack? Was it good for Eddie? Was it good for anyone he interacted with when he was there? Because those are also different answers to different questions. Because, like, I don't think Eddie came out of this better. Eddie definitely came out of this worse for what happened, but I'm not sure if Bojack came out of this better, because Bojack's constantly in flux, and it's hard to tell from the end of this episode whether he's better than he was when he entered. He's obviously not good right now, but he might be better than when he arrived. But that might just be him going back to the status quo again, like he always does. And I don't know. This was a very emotional episode, and we're kind of starting to loop back on ourselves. So I think it's time to maybe just wrap this up a little bit.
Well, we reached the end of the episode, too.
Yeah, but we have started to loop back on our topics and our conversation here. So I think we'll move towards ending this and get some final thoughts out of you guys. But before that, you can find out all the info on this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. And and also thank you to all our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Taylor, aka Needle. And thanks as always to our Patreon executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, and and Andy.
And you.
Yeah, and me. But it's hard to say that. Let me say, I've never had to say an ending and felt weird saying it. You know what I mean? But this was a hard way to transition here. But
brought to you by
yeah.
executive producer me.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not just that. It's all of this. It's all of this. Like, hey, you could find more of this. But it's this was a very heavy episode to talk about. Do you guys have anything more to say? Do you have any final thoughts on this, Sam?
Yeah, there was one thing that kind of made me feel weird.
Go ahead.
There's sort of like an Oedipal relationship going on with Crackerjack and Honey.
Yes.
And it made me feel weird.
What relationship?
Oedipal, like Oedipus.
Oh.
Yeah, and
except it was more like, I forget what the fuck
Platonic?
mom's name was in this story. No, it was like, what was the mom's name in Oedipus?
Oh god, I forget her name.
I don't remember her fucking name, but it was more like that.
I don't think that line has ever been uttered. What the fuck was Oedipus's mom's name?
Yeah, I don't know what her name is. I forget. And I was gonna look it up and then I forgot.
I'll look it up right now while you're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, but there was this weird, like, Oedipal, like, theme going on, especially from her side, and, like, it especially kind of shone through when she kissed his, like, army friend at the barn party. And that just made me feel weird. I mean, of course, the show Bojack Horseman is no stranger to just, like, bringing out really fucked up, weird, and terrible, tragic, like, sort of, like, bordering on incest things. But I don't know, it just made me feel weird and kind of, like, docked a lot of my feelings for the episode. Maybe because, like, I'm not a son, and, like, I don't have that mother-son relationship with my mother, and
I don't think.
Yeah.
I'm a son of a mother, and I don't think I've had this kind of closeness ever. Like, I've never sat down at a piano and sung a duet with my mom. Like, this felt like, and it's just how it is. Like, I'm not saying parents have favorites, but sometimes you just connect with your parents better. Sometimes parents just
they kind of do have favorites.
Yeah, they kind of do, and it's not really. And they do. It's just how it is. That's how people are. You interact, feel better sometimes, and they were really happy with each other, and I think that's all it was. It was just, and I can get your saying, and also I found Oedipus' mother's name was Jocasta.
Jocasta, that's her name. I thought it was like Joanna. I was like, that's
you were
not
close.
Right.
You were close. That's, but it's I think that is a way to view it, but the way I viewed it was just that they were very close, and it's heartbreaking to see that happen, that she lost her son. And I think she did feel the same way towards Beatrice. It's just Beatrice was so young and still developmental, in a developmental stage of her life, that she didn't really have a chance to interact with her mom in the same way. Does that make sense?
Although also they were being raised in an atmosphere where males were being favored, and also he was the firstborn in a time where that was still important.
Yeah,
so
true.
Just all that together makes it a very close connection.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's very clear, at least at the beginning, that she does love Beatrice. There's nothing, I think, implied in this flashback that she doesn't love her daughter. At least in some way, because she seems very affectionate towards her. But I do agree that she does seem very much more affectionate towards her son. Yeah, and again, it's heartbreaking. That's like the motto of this episode. It's heartbreaking. But did you have anything you want to touch on, Alex, before we wrap this up?
No, I guess I'm just I'm impressed by the emotional depth that's always displayed by the episodes of Ham Bone Fake Namington.
Yeah, yeah, that was one thing I forgot to put in the outline. Yeah, that was funny.
Oh, Bojack.
Oh, why are you calling me that? You told me to call you that. You said that was your name. Oh man.
I mean, it feels like Ham Bone should be the name of some character in this show.
It does.
A pig should be named Ham Bone.
Oh, also, we forgot to mention the termites. The termite kids.
Yeah, that was a nice gag too.
That was a nice gag. Them gnawing at the porch. I thought that was funny. But yeah, it's a. I don't really.
Always gotta hide those laughs in this sea of depression. Am I right?
And I think the laughs landed pretty well. I think all the laughs landed fairly well in this episode. It's just talking about it like this. It's hard to focus on those laughs instead of on how depressing this episode was. I guess that's it then. Like, it feels unsatisfying to just end our conversation, but that's just kind of how it is, I guess, because we have 10 more episodes of this left, and we're going to probably, more hosts and more co-hosts are going to talk about this, and we're going to see how Bojack evolves this season. And I am sure that this episode will have a very big impact on how we see things evolve the rest of this show, because we saw a relationship between a mom and a daughter, and I think that's very important to see before we see Bojack interact with his supposed daughter. And I feel like that's going to have some... I am sure there's going to be some amount of parallels there. And I'm worried about that. I'm worried about where we're heading. But at the same time, it's probably going to be really good television. So, unless if you guys are done, I think we're going to wrap it up then. And, I'm glad, thanks everyone for sticking around this long. It wasn't a really happy episode. We didn't really talk about a lot of fun stuff. There's a couple of jokes, but we'll be back with episode 3, maybe episode 4 as well. The more episodes of this we watch, the more we realize it's hard to do more than one episode per because this podcast was supposed to be episode 2 and 3 at first, and we watched episode 2, and it was like, there's no way we can talk about more than just this episode. And we were right, because this is an hour long.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
like, comment, subscribe if you want us to have a 2-hour long Bojack podcast.
Oh my god, that would be painful. That would be for us, I think. I don't know if I could talk about Bojack this in depth.
Well, it just turned into a therapy podcast.
We almost already did. Yeah. So I don't know who's hosting the next one. Is it you, Alex? I think you're hosting the next one.
Maybe. Who knows?
We're professionals here. Also, if you liked this, you might also like our Rick and Morty coverage. It's coming back soon. I think Sunday there's a new episode. We're recording this on Friday the 8th of September, and there's a new Rick and Morty episode coming out this Sunday. So we'll have a recap of that and a panel the following Tuesday or Wednesday on the same episode. You might like some of our other content that come out, so you should check out our other shows we cover, Steven Universe, Star Versus, and you guys are covering OKKO now, if people like that. Yeah, you should definitely check those out. So anyways, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you all next time. Bye.
Adios.
Bye.